It gives me very great pleasure to be with you all this afternoon and to participate in this function, which has been organized by the Great Lakes Institute of Management as they are launching the PhD program. I have had some close association with the institution. I was a good friend of Bala, and for the time he thought about setting up this institute, and later I have met him several times, and I visited the institute also several times. But our association actually goes back to the early 1990s, and even earlier when we were at the university, at the university at which he was teaching in the United States. He was a very dedicated person. He was very keen to ensure that the institution that he was setting up becomes one of the outstanding institutions in the field of management. Earlier in India itself, he had a close association with setting up the business school at Hyderabad. And it was at that time I was Governor of Andhra Pradesh, and that institution was set up. It's unfortunate that he passed away early. Had he continued, he would have played a much bigger role in terms of investing this institution with greater credibility. But that is very unfortunate. But I'm happy to note that under the leadership of Professor Ramanathan, the great traditions set up by Bala are being carried forward. And today marks another important milestone in the history and evolution of this institution. If you look at the roles of institutions of higher education, I see two roles. One is the role of the educational institution as a teaching institution. As a teaching institution, the main function is essentially to disseminate knowledge that has already been gathered and collected. A good teacher can be a good scholar, but not necessarily an innovator. In the past, we have had in India many important people who were very prominent as professors, but not necessarily thought leaders. The two are sometimes different ways of doing intellectual activity. So the first task of a higher education institution is to disseminate knowledge, distribute the knowledge that is already there, and convey to the students in a way in which it is convincing, and make them think about what they should be doing, the students should be doing. But there's also another role for educational institutions, and that is increase the stock of knowledge, the accumulated knowledge can be disseminated, and at the same time, the stock of knowledge also should be increased, and that is where the second role of the educational institution in the field of research becomes critically important. I look back, I have had a long association with the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. I was not there in the early years, but after a few years I joined it. and continued at the IIM Ahmedabad for almost a decade and a half. In the institutes of management, which were set up at that time, the three of them, initially two, later one, the three of them belongs to the old block, so to say. And they were essentially teaching institutions. But they made a big impact. Why? As a teaching institution, also, they brought into focus several things. First of all, they had faculty which were of high quality. They were the ones who essentially started the idea that nobody can be a teacher unless he has a PhD, except in fields like accounting or something. But otherwise, one should have a PhD. Second, they also saw to it not only individual courses, but all the courses taken together constitute a package. And management was already a new subject. In fact, management as such is difficult to define what subject it is. It is a combination of economics, it is a combination of operations research, quantitative methods for various types, and organizational behavior, psychology, and so on. All of that together constitute management. So they really put together the various streams of knowledge which go to make management together. I think the two together, a well-coordinated program, a good selection of teachers, made these institutions highly famous. But added to it was also the fact that they also introduced some innovation in teaching. That is what you call the case method. That case method was not known in India at that time, and therefore bringing it into operation and making the people write for the professors write cases was an important contribution. I mean, in terms of teaching technology, it is important. Even though people like us who were in the IIM at that time was always insisting upon the basic disciplines which form part of the management program should not be forgotten. I think very often people say that asking the right questions is solving half the problem. So that is true. But you have to solve the whole problem. And if you have to solve the whole problem, you need to know the basic sciences and the basic disciplines from which the various sub-disciplines of the various subjects have grown. Therefore, you cannot simply be asking questions alone. So the case method really helps you to ask the questions. But to find the answers, you really need the discipline, knowledge of the disciplines. So anyway, I think the best thing that happened to the system of education in India at that point is basically selecting people with deep knowledge in whatever discipline, in whatever field of teaching that they were.